Breaking now, a judge in New York has dismissed one of two charges against Daniel Penny. He is an ex-Marine charged with the 2023 killing of a homeless man named Jordan Neely on a subway in New York. Let's go straight out to our courts and legal reporter, Zach Schonfeld. Zach, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, Drew, quite a striking development here on the fourth day of jury deliberations in this trial of Daniel Penny. And it all ended with now the top charge in this case, that being second-degree manslaughter, being dropped. It all began earlier today when the jury, on its fourth day of deliberations, came back with a note to the judge and the parties indicating that they had reached an impasse on this charge and could not reach a unanimous verdict. What the judge did next is he gave them what's called an Allen charge, which is an instruction to the jury that essentially encourages them to keep trying, to be flexible, to try to reach that unanimous verdict one way or another, but to not give up and settle on them being at an impasse. They then went back to their deliberation room, kept talking. They sent another note asking a technical question about the charge a little later. And then it ended later in the afternoon with yet another note indicating that after all of this, after 4 days, they still could not reach a unanimous decision on this charge. Then the parties started battling over what should happen next and what the appropriate remedy should be. The defense here, Penny's lawyers, argued at this point there needed to be a mistrial and that anything else would be coercing the jury into reaching an unfair decision. They lost that argument. Instead, the judge went with prosecutor's proposal. They proposed dropping this top charge of second-degree manslaughter and instead going to the second and final count, a lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide. So they still have a chance of salvaging this trial and reaching the guilty verdict that they want, but certainly prosecutors here suffering a big loss with getting their top charge dismissed.
Is there any difference, Zach, in what could be the possible punishment in this negligent homicide charge versus the manslaughter charge that was being previously considered?
There is. That top charge of manslaughter that has now been dismissed, that would have carried a maximum of up to 15 years in prison. You compare that to now the second charge that the jury will be considering as their sole count, that can carry a sentence of up to 4 years in prison. So quite a stark difference. Of course, any final sentencing decision will be up to the judge. Those are just the maximums. But this is, expected to be now a lesser penalty than what would have been on the top charge. But at this point, it's still unclear as to whether the jury's verdict on the second count will be any different than the first.
Yeah, and jurors back in court on Monday morning. We'll continue to follow this case. Zach Schonfeld, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Drew.